Plateauing in chess can be a real challenge to overcome. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere and 3 months of rapid progress turn into 3 months of stagnation. Everyone experiences plateau at one point or another. Even I've been stuck at 2,300 elo for around a year or so. But how do we fix it? Well, in today's video, we'll be going through everything you need to know about plateaus. We'll look at how to overcome it and how to fix it if you're already there. Before we do get into today's video though, if you guys do enjoy my content and would like to help support my channel, feel free to check out the coaching options in the description below. Coaching is certainly not necessary to becoming a great chess player. However, if you're not someone who has all the time in the world to spend training and studying, coaching will absolutely save you years of time trying to do everything yourself. You can use code FIRST at checkout to get 25% off your first lesson, or book 4 lessons in advance to get your 5th one completely free. But if you guys want an alternative free option, you guys can feel free to join my Discord where you can collaborate with higher rated players who can help you get to your next rating goal. But with all that being said, let's jump into today's video. Plateauing can come in many forms, but generally it's when you keep playing chess and keep improving at chess, but your rating lags behind. This can be especially confusing when you've been gaining elo a lot lately and then it just stops out of nowhere. You may also find yourself beating really high rated players on occasion, but you can't find that consistency in all of your games. So how do we fix this? Well, first it's important to outline a couple of things. The main plateau that chess players will face is around 1,000 to 1,500 elo. This is when chess players realize they can't just get away with only playing and reviewing their games to get better. For a lot of players, apart from their initial opening study for the openings that they actually play, all they do is play puzzles and review games. Whilst this is actually my recommendation until you get to a certain point, it will only take you so far until you hit an impassable wall. What's helpful for this video is no matter how much time you spend studying or not studying, the solution is the same for everyone. For this, we'll need to break the video up into 2 sections, one for openings and the other for Middlegames and Endgames. The reason you're stuck at whatever elo you find yourself at is because you have a deficiency in one of these 3 areas. For example, it doesn't matter if you're really good at openings and far above the average of your rating level. If your middle games are terrible, that's what's holding you back. However, for most people, there are 2 problems. First of all, how do we identify this weakness? And second of all, how do we fix it? Those are 2 questions we'll answer later on, but first, let's look at openings. The first thing to understand is that rating plateau can happen at all different kinds of rating brackets. You could just as easily plateau at 1,000 elo as you could at 2,000 elo. So you'll have to tone down the advice that I'm giving to match your respective elo level. If you're in the lower end of the rating spectrum, the likelihood is openings are not your problem. The only reason that your openings would be causing your rating plateau at a low level is if you just had a weird repertoire. For example, if you're trying to play really complex openings or you're just playing weird gambits, that might be holding you back. If this is the case, it might be a sign to switch to a more solid repertoire and see how you go. However, for people a little bit higher rated, here's how you can tell if your openings are the problem. First, go to openingtree.com, click on the platform you play, and insert your username. You'll need to do this process twice for both black and white. But for now, let's look at the white pieces. And any games from time controls you think will skew this data, like bullet games. Then, for the date range, put in the dates that you feel you've stagnated in. For example, if your elo has stayed the same for 3 months, put in 3 months. For me, I've been playing my new repertoire for around 2 months, so we'll make that the date range. Now, click Analyze Games, and Opening Tree will scrape data from your preferred platform and give you your win rates for each opening branch you play. What we do from here is go down every single opening line and figure out if there's a big weakness. For example, if we put d4 on the board for me, we can see if black responds with d5, I've won 13 games and lost 4, so that's probably not the issue. We can and should go deeper into that line just to make sure, but I've already checked and there are no weaknesses lying there. The other opening moves that seem problematic are knight f6 and g6. The sample size for g6 is a little small, but it shouldn't be ignored. I have never really studied the modern defense and always try to transpose to a King's Indian, so this is definitely a weakness of mine I should get around to fixing. Let's go into knight f6 though, which has a much larger sample size. After c4, we can see that after e6, the Nimzo Indian defense, I have just 4 wins and 8 losses. This is very alarming, but if we click onto the next move, we can see the data is inaccurate because it's a transposition, so no issues there. So only one small weakness in my white repertoire against the modern defense. Now let's look at my black repertoire. Immediately, I'm seeing 6 losses and 3 wins against the English opening. Again, an opening I haven't studied yet. This is another weakness outlined by Opening Tree that I should act on. Of course, we should be going a few lines deeper to make sure it's not just one variation we're getting wrong, but for now, let's move on to other openings. After e4 and c5, we can see that I fare well against the Alpen with c3 or the closed Sicilian with knight c3, but against the open Sicilian, my repertoire is quite flimsy with 10 losses and 5 wins. After knight f6 and e6, we can tell this problem isn't specific to one particular line in the Khan Sicilian, but just all across the board. So what have we learned from this Opening Tree endeavor? Well, we've noted some weaknesses within my opening repertoire. My Khan Sicilian needs work, my English for the black side needs work, and I also need to study the modern defense. Whilst my openings might not be the main reason for my plateau, we've certainly outlined some weaknesses within my repertoire. The advantage of looking at your opening tree like this is now you don't have to study openings that you're already good at. Most people who think that their openings are the problem will go ahead and train their entire repertoire and not just the problem areas. If you want to know how you can improve on these opening weaknesses, I'll leave a link in the description below, not only to Opening Tree, but to a video I've made on how to build your own opening repertoire. With all this being said, I feel it's rather unlikely that my openings are the main reason for my plateau. It might only contribute to about 15%, and see what else might be holding me back. Before we do continue though, this video wouldn't be possible without today's sponsor, ChessMind.ai. ChessMind.ai. ChessMind.ai is a next-generation AI-powered chess improvement platform who also happens to be the sponsor of today's video. Not only does ChessMind have completely free puzzles, but they also have a wide range of courses you can select from for less than $5 per month. All of the courses are handcrafted by Chilean Grandmaster Maurizio Flores and are designed to make you a master of any opening variation in around an hour. They perfectly balance top quality theory with ease of learning to take the boring out of any study. Once you've completed these opening courses, you can either play puzzles deriving from said opening, or dive into their AI integrations which quiz your knowledge on what you just learned. The AI acts as a replacement for a coach, asking you to find characteristics of certain positions and explain the advantages and disadvantages. You can check out ChessMind.ai with my link in the description where you can get 30% off your subscription. But with all that being said, let's look at how we can assess our middle games and end games. To assess our middle games and end games, we'll need to use a website called AimChess. AimChess is paid, but for everything that we're going to look at in this video, you don't really need the paid subscription and you can use their freemium service. AimChess is essentially a tool that tracks all of the statistics about the way that you play chess. It works similarly to Opening Tree, where you'll put in your Lichess or chess.com username and it'll scrape data from your account. But this time, it'll go much more in-depth and analyze the way that you play, not just the opening moves. First, you need to go to My Statistics and wait for your full account report to be processed. However, if you're using the free version, you can make a 40-game report which will only include your last 40 games, which should suffice. Make sure to click the correct time control, then hit continue. Once it's processed, we can see a graph which outlines what we excel at and what we're deficient in. For example, here's my graph. You can see that we're pretty on the nose when it comes to our openings. We have slight weaknesses, but we certainly excel at them, and they shouldn't be our problem. In fact, it's everywhere else that's the problem. Our advantage, capitalization, and time management aren't too bad, but our endgames, tactics, and resourcefulness are quite subpar. It's quite important we go down and review these sections. Let's actually go through all of them together. For my overall win rate, AimChess agrees with Opening Tree that our main weakness is with the black side, suggesting we only win 43% of games with black, most likely due to our deficiency in the Open Sicilian and the English. But we already knew this, so let's move on. If you're using the free version of AimChess, I would skip over the opening section as the sample size is a little bit too small and gives you some weird advice, so unless you have the paid version, don't worry about it too much and stick to Opening Tree. Whilst converting 72% of my advantageous games into wins might seem good, AimChess thinks it's less successful conversions than most players in my rating range. So even though the number is relatively high, this is certainly something I need to work on. Resourcefulness doesn't matter as much in my opinion. We should be avoiding getting into bad positions rather than learning how to be resourceful once we're worse. However, aim chess thinks this is another weakness of mine, and players my rating tend to come back from worse positions more often than I do. Whilst 26% seems like a very low figure for such a double-edged skill, it's actually not too far off the 31% figure that people at my rating average. So overall, despite it seeming like an alarming number, I'm not incredibly worried about this, as these kind of things can also easily be skewed by what openings you play. Now we can look at tactics. For this one, we should switch tabs to versus groups to see how we fare against players our level. I'm not convinced this is the best way to analyze whether or not our tactics are good, but aim chess is suggesting we make poor moves more frequently than players our rating range. Regardless, tactics are easy to train. You might be wondering, what kind of tactics should I be training? Well, we can switch over to per stage to figure that out. Out of the opening, I make far less mistakes than players around my rating, so this probably isn't something that needs work. However, in the middle game, I make far more mistakes than my opponents do. Something important to note is that if we do train puzzles, we should be playing puzzles deriving from our opening. To do this, load up Lichess, hover over puzzles, and click puzzle themes. Then scroll down to buy openings and click more. Then, scroll down to your opening that you play and click on it. This should give you tactics from positions that boast similar characteristics to the ones you'll actually get in your games. On top of this, we can see I blunder far more frequently in the endgame compared to players of my rating. But let's skip over that for now and move on to the endgame review. We can see here, aim chess thinks that if we're winning an endgame, there's no problem. It also thinks I'm very resourceful in the endgames when I'm losing. No problem there either. However, it thinks I often lose endgames where I should have equal winning chances. This is super useful information, because instead of training all endgames, we now know we need to be specifically studying drawn endgames. This is probably where a majority of our blunders are coming from in the endgame as well. Here's just how bad I am at equal endgames too. Although you do have to ask yourself, are you bad at equal endgames, or are you just pushing for a win where there isn't one? But regardless, it's good to know where your weaknesses lie. If you're looking for places to train your endgames, chess.com's Endgame Trainer is great, but requires diamond membership. A good free alternative is Chess Tempo though, which has a wide variety of endgames you can train with. For time management, aim chess thinks I'm doing just fine. I'm ahead on the clock just as often as I'm behind. This is great news for multiple reasons, the biggest being my time management isn't influencing my other statistics. For example, if you lose a lot on time, but you have significantly less blunders than other people, it's because you're spending more time calculating moves as to not blunder. This means that the rest of your statistics are probably inaccurate, which makes improving a lot harder. But for me, this isn't an issue, so the rest of the data is reliable. I went ahead and paid for aim chess to show you what a full report would look like. This is my report over the last 3 months, as opposed to just 40 games, including over 150 rapid games. We can see these statistics line up. My editor will put both graphs side by side for you, but you can essentially see, unless you've made some drastic changes to your chess and are an outlier, you should be able to rely on the free version. So with all of this information, what do we do now? Well, now that we know what our weaknesses are, we train them. A lot of people will get stuck training things that they don't actually need to be training. We get so stuck studying one thing, like openings, that we don't even think that we might have weaknesses in other areas of our game. But now we know exactly what we need to be doing. For me, I need to practice the open Sicilian, I need to be working on my tactics in the middle game and endgame, and maybe a bit of work into advantage capitalization. This makes it very easy to take action on what I need to be doing to get better at chess. I can target those specific weaknesses instead of trying to just get better all across the board. Of course, you might be wondering, how do I train these individual things? But I think those are topics for another video, so if you'd like to see me make any video on this channel, feel free to leave a comment below. Apart from that though, I hope you all walk away from this video with a little bit of a better idea on how to overcome your rating plateau. If you did enjoy today's video, please consider subscribing, but apart from that, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.